If you enjoy stories about unfaithful husbands, this channel is for you. Leave a like and support us by subscribing to the channel. I should have known something was wrong when George started avoiding the county clerk's office. "We don't need to update anything," he'd say dismissively. "It's just bureaucratic nonsense, Donna. We've been together 23 years. What difference does a piece of paper make?" But it made a difference to me. It started 3 months ago when I needed our marriage certificate for my mother's estate paperwork. The lawyer was specific. I needed an updated, certified copy. Simple enough, I thought. George and I married when I was 24. Our twin sons were in college now. This should have been routine. "George," the lawyer called again, I said one evening as he walked through the door of our split-level home in Riverside, California. "We really need to go to the clerk's office this week." "Christ, Donna, I just walked in." He dropped his briefcase on the counter. "Can I have 5 minutes before you start nagging?" Nagging. That word stung. "I'm not nagging. I'm asking you to do something we should have done years ago. It's 1 hour at the courthouse." "Saturday morning?" George opened the refrigerator, staring inside. "I'm busy Saturday." "Doing what?" "Work stuff. Important client meeting." "On Saturday? Since when?" He grabbed a beer. "Since I got promoted to a position that actually matters. Some of us have demanding careers, Donna." There it was, that subtle jab. Little comments about how I'd stopped working after the boys were born, how I didn't understand his professional pressures. Never mind that I'd put him through business school. Never mind that I'd managed everything. The house, the kids, his elderly parents, while he climbed the corporate ladder. What about Monday afternoon? "Why are you obsessed with this?" Something in his eyes looked panicked. "What's the rush?" "The rush is that my mother died 4 months ago, and I can't settle her estate without current documentation." He took a long drink. "We'll do it eventually. Eventually." That word hung between us like a threat. That night, lying in bed while George snored, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. It wasn't just about the certificate. It was the way he'd looked at me. Cornered, evasive, guilty. The next morning, after George left for work, I did something I'd never done before. I went through his desk. The dinner invitation came 2 weeks later, hand-delivered by George's mother, Patricia. "Friday night, 6 o'clock sharp," she said, standing in my doorway with that pinched expression she always wore around me. "Don't be late. George is bringing someone we all need to meet." Someone. The word made my stomach drop. "What do you mean?" I asked, but Patricia was already walking back to her car, waving dismissively. George had been staying late at work almost every night. When I'd asked about Friday dinner, he'd simply said, "It's family business. Just be there." I arrived at Patricia's house in Anaheim at exactly 6 o'clock. The driveway was full. George's brother Marcus, his sister Teresa, even his father who rarely left home. But George's car wasn't there yet. Inside, the dining room table was set for 8. Patricia had used her good china, the set reserved for holidays. My assigned seat was at the far end, away from the head where Patricia always sat. "Where's George?" I asked Teresa. "He'll be here. He's bringing Lena." Lena. The name meant nothing to me. "Who's Lena?" Teresa met my eyes with a look that mixed pity and contempt. "You'll see." 20 minutes later, the front door opened. George walked in, wearing a suit I'd never seen. Charcoal gray, expensive, perfectly tailored. Beside him, holding his arm, was a woman. She was younger, maybe 35, with sleek black hair in an elegant chignon. She wore a cream dress that probably cost more than my wardrobe. Diamond earrings caught the light. "Everyone," George said confidently, "I'd like you to meet Lena, my wife." The room went silent except for Patricia's sharp breath, but it wasn't shock. It was relief. My wife. I gripped the chair to stay steady. "George," I whispered, "what are you talking about?" He finally looked at me, eyes cold. "Donna, we need to talk, but not here." Lena turned to me with practiced sympathy. "You must be Donna. George has told me so much. This must be difficult." Patricia moved to Lena's side, actually smiling. "Welcome to the family, dear. We're so glad George finally made an honest woman of you. Finally." The word echoed in my head as the room started spinning. "Sit down, Donna." Patricia's voice cut through the chaos in my head. She gestured to my assigned seat, the one farthest from where Lena now stood beside George. "I don't understand what's happening," I said, voice shaking. "George, we need to talk. Now." "There's nothing to discuss that can't wait until after dinner," George replied without looking at me. He pulled out a chair for Lena, the seat next to Patricia's, the place of honor. Marcus cleared his throat. Teresa busied herself with wine bottles. George's father stared at his empty plate. I remained standing. You just introduced another woman as your wife, and you expect me to sit down and eat? Don't be dramatic, Patricia snapped. You're making this harder than necessary. Sit down and show some dignity. Dignity. From the woman who'd spent 23 years criticizing everything about me. My housekeeping, how I raised the boys, how I looked after pregnancies. George and Lena have been together for 7 years, Patricia continued casually. It's time we acknowledged reality. You've had a good run, Donna, but everything ends. 7 years. 7 years? I stared at George. You've been with her for 7 years? He met my eyes with irritation, not guilt. This isn't the time or place. Then when? When were you planning to tell me? Our house? George laughed. Donna, you don't understand anything. That house is in my name. The cars are in my name. Everything is in my name. You've been living on my charity. Patricia nodded approvingly. Exactly. Instead of being grateful, you've caused problems, refusing to sign papers, making demands about certificates. It's embarrassing. I want you to apologize, George said flatly. I stared. Apologize? For what? For causing problems, for upsetting my family, for making Lena uncomfortable. He gestured around the table. We're trying to have a civilized dinner. Show some respect. Lena touched his arm gently. George, maybe. No. She needs to understand her position here. His eyes were ice. You have no legal claim to anything, Donna. I've made sure of that. The room was silent. Everyone watched me, waiting. I picked up my purse. I'm not apologizing for existing in my own marriage. And I walked out. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, unable to process what had just happened. 7 years. George had been living a double life for 7 years, and his entire family had known. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Ms. Donna Carter? This is James Quinn. I believe we need to talk. It's about your husband. Starbucks on Main Street, Riverside. 20 minutes. I should have been suspicious. I should have gone home, called a lawyer. But something in that message made me start the car. The Starbucks was nearly empty. A man in an impeccable charcoal suit sat at a corner table, silver hair perfectly styled, watching the door. He stood when I entered. Ms. Carter, thank you for coming. His handshake was firm, professional. I'm James Quinn. How did you get my number? I make it my business to know things. He gestured to the chair. Please. I've ordered you coffee. Black. No sugar, correct? The specificity was unnerving. Who are you? I'm the CEO of Westbridge Capital. Your husband works in my acquisitions division. He slid a folder across the table. I'm also someone who doesn't appreciate being lied to, and George has been lying for quite some time. I opened the folder. Inside were documents, marriage certificates, property records, financial statements. That's George's marriage to Lena Morrison, Quinn said, pointing to a certificate dated 2018, registered in Clark County, Nevada. And that's his marriage to you, registered in Orange County, California, 2001. So he's a bigamist. Technically, yes, though he's been careful keeping marriages in separate jurisdictions. Quinn leaned back. What's more interesting is this. He showed me financial records. George's salary was $240,000 annually, but there were other numbers, bonuses, stock options, numbers adding up to nearly $800,000 yearly. I promoted your husband 6 months ago based on his reputation as a stable family man, Quinn said. He presented Lena at company events. She's listed on his insurance, his beneficiaries. My coffee sat untouched, growing cold. Why tell me this? Quinn's expression hardened. Because George embezzled from my company, and the initial investment he used to secure his position, $50,000 he claimed was inheritance, came from your mother's estate. My mother's estate? The words came out as a whisper. That's impossible. She only died 4 months ago. Quinn pulled out another document. Not that estate, your father's. He passed in 2015, correct? Left everything to your mother, who had power of attorney that George convinced her to share with him. The room tilted. Dad had died 9 years ago. Mom had been devastated, confused by legal paperwork. George had offered to help manage everything. He told me he was handling it so she wouldn't be overwhelmed, I said. He said the money was safely invested. It was invested in his career. Quinn's jaw tightened. $50,000 to buy into a partnership at Westbridge. Another $30,000 borrowed over years for business expenses. Your mother signed documents she didn't understand. I thought about Mom's last years in that small assisted living apartment, instead of the nicer facility I'd wanted. "We can't afford it right now," George had said. "Maybe next year." There had never been a next year. "George knows you walked out of that dinner," Quinn continued. "He'll come home angry. I have a secured apartment in Newport Beach, fully furnished. You'll stay there while we build our case. I can't just leave. My sons are 22 and away at college. I've done my research." He slid a business card across. "This is Helen Bradford, the best divorce lawyer in California. She's expecting your call tomorrow morning." I stared at the card. "Why are you helping me?" "Because George made me look like a fool. He lied to my face, stole from my company, manipulated his way into a position he didn't earn." Quinn's eyes were cold. "And because Lena Morrison is my goddaughter." My head snapped up. "What?" "Lena's father and I were business partners for 30 years. I've known her since birth." His expression was ice. "George seduced her, told her you were just an ex who wouldn't let go. She has no idea she's the other woman. She thinks she's his legitimate wife." The cruelty was breathtaking. "When she finds out," Quinn continued, "she'll be devastated. George will lose everything. His job, his reputation, both wives, his freedom. But only if you fight." I picked up the business card. "I'm willing." Helen Bradford's office was in a glass tower in downtown Los Angeles, the kind of building that screamed money and power. I felt small walking through the marble lobby in my department store clothes. Her assistant escorted me to a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Helen was younger than I expected, maybe 45, with sharp eyes and an immaculate gray suit. "Mr. Quinn briefed me on your situation," she said, gesturing to a chair. "Before we proceed, I need you to understand something. This will get ugly. It's already ugly. It will get worse." She opened a file. "George has been planning this for years. The house is solely in his name. The cars, the bank accounts, the retirement funds, everything. Legally, you own nothing." The words hit like physical blows. "But I helped buy that house. I used my inheritance from my grandmother for the down payment." "Can you prove it?" I thought back 20 years. The check had been made out to George because his credit score was better. It was a gift to him, for us. Then legally, it was his money. Helen's expression softened slightly. "Donna, you need to prepare yourself. George has been systematically erasing you from his financial life for years." She slid documents across the desk. "Look at these beneficiary forms. Life insurance, Lena Morrison. Retirement accounts, Lena Morrison. His will, updated 3 years ago. Everything goes to Lena. What about our sons? George told them you were mentally unstable, that you'd become paranoid and difficult. He's been poisoning them against you for years, preparing them for when he'd finally leave." My throat tightened. They believed him. They're confused. They love you. But George is convincing. Helen paused. "There's more. We found an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. George has been hiding money there for 5 years, nearly $500,000. From where? Your mother's estate. Company bonuses he never reported. Embezzled funds from Westbridge." She leaned forward. "George isn't just a cheater, Donna. He's a criminal. And we're going to prove it." I stared at the documents. 23 years of my life reduced to legal evidence of betrayal. "What do I do now?" "You fight. We expose everything at the gala next week. We show George and everyone who enabled him exactly what he's done." Helen's eyes were steel. "And then we watch his world burn." 3 weeks later, I stood in James Quinn's penthouse apartment in Newport Beach, wearing a dress that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Quinn had insisted on the wardrobe upgrade. "Image matters," he'd said, "especially where we're going tonight." Tonight was the Westbridge Capital annual gala, the biggest corporate event of the year. George would be there. Lena would be there. And I would be there as James Quinn's date. "Are you ready?" Quinn appeared in the doorway, immaculate in his tuxedo. "I don't know what I'm doing. You're showing George that you've moved on, that you're not the woman he left broken at his mother's dinner table." Quinn offered his arm. "You're showing him he made the biggest mistake of his life." The gala was held at the Ritz-Carlton in Dana Point. Crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, women in designer gowns, men in expensive suits. I'd never been to anything like this. George had never taken me to company events. "They're boring," he'd always said. "You wouldn't enjoy them." Now I understood. He'd been bringing Lena. We entered the ballroom, and I felt eyes turn toward us. Whispers rippled through the crowd. James Quinn rarely attended these events with a date. People were curious. Then I saw George. He stood near the bar with Lena, both holding champagne flutes. He was laughing at something someone said. Then he looked up. Our eyes met across the room. His face went white. The champagne glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the marble floor. Conversation stopped. People turned to look. "Mr. Carter," Quinn said pleasantly as we approached. "I don't believe you've met my companion. This is Donna Carter, though I suppose you know her already." George's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. Lena looked confused. "Donna? The woman from—" Her eyes widened. "George, what's going on?" "Perhaps we should step outside," Quinn suggested. "This conversation seems overdue." But before anyone could move, Patricia appeared, her face twisted with rage. "You have some nerve showing up here?" she hissed at me. After everything?" Quinn's voice cut like a blade. "Mrs. Carter, do you know your son is a bigamist? That he's been stealing from my company? That the woman he introduced as his wife is actually his mistress?" The room went deadly silent. Lena's champagne glass shattered next. "That's not true," Lena said, her voice shaking. "George and I have been married for 7 years. We have a marriage certificate. You have a marriage certificate from Nevada," Quinn interrupted. "George also has a marriage certificate from California, to Donna, dated 6 years before yours." The crowd pressed closer, phones out, recording everything. George finally found his voice. "This is absurd. Donna and I were never legally married. We lived together, yes, but I have our marriage certificate," I said quietly. "Orange County, California, June 15th, 2001. Signed by Judge Patricia Reynolds." "That's a lie," Patricia snapped. "George married Lena. She's his real wife. You're just some woman who put him through business school," I interrupted. "Who raised his children? Who managed his elderly parents while he climbed the corporate ladder?" Lena's face had gone pale. "Children? George doesn't have children. He has twin sons, Jason and Michael. They're 22, currently at UC Berkeley." I looked at George. "Or did you forget to mention them?" "Those aren't his children," Patricia said desperately. "They're from Donna's previous relationship. George just helped raise them out of kindness. DNA tests say otherwise." Helen Bradford appeared beside me, holding a folder. "I'm Helen Bradford, Ms. Carter's attorney. I have documented proof of paternity, fraudulent birth certificate amendments, embezzlement, and bigamy. Would you like me to continue in front of all these witnesses, or shall we take this somewhere private?" George's face was crimson. "You had no right." "I had every right," I said. "You stole from my family. You stole my life. You erased me from every document, every account, every memory. You told our sons I was unstable, that I'd abandoned them." Lena grabbed George's arm. "What is she talking about? George, tell me this isn't true." "Lena, sweetheart, she's confused. She's been having mental health issues." "Don't." My voice was steel. "Don't you dare gaslight her the way you gaslit me for 23 years. Lena stepped back from George, realization dawning on her face. "The business trips, the separate bank accounts, your mother's hatred of Donna." She looked at me. "He told me you were his ex-girlfriend who stalked him. I was his wife. I still am, legally. Then who am I?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Quinn answered, "You're the other woman, Ms. Morrison, and I'm very sorry you had to find out this way." Lena's champagne glass hit the floor, adding to the shattered crystal at our feet. Security moved closer, unsure whether to intervene. "George," Lena whispered, "tell me she's lying." George's eyes darted around the room, calculating, looking for an escape route that didn't exist. "Lena, this is complicated. Let me explain." "Explain what? That you're married to 2 women?" Her voice rose. "That you have children you never told me about? That everything about our life together is a lie? It's not like that. Donna and we were over years ago. The marriage was just a technicality." "A technicality?" I stepped forward. "I cooked your meals. I raised your children. I nursed your mother through cancer while you were working late. I gave up my career, my friends, my entire life for you." Patricia grabbed my arm. "You have no right to embarrass this family. Get your hands off her." Quinn's voice was lethal. Patricia released me instantly. "Mrs. Carter," Quinn continued, addressing Patricia, "you've been complicit in fraud. You helped George hide assets, forge documents, and gaslight your own grandchildren about their mother. I suggest you contact a lawyer." "How dare you threaten me?" "It's not a threat. It's a promise." He turned to the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption. However, I want to make something clear. George Carter is terminated from Westbridge Capital effective immediately. He will face criminal charges for embezzlement. Anyone who assisted him should expect legal action. George lunged toward me, but security intercepted him. You bitch! You've ruined everything. No, I said calmly. You ruined everything. I'm just making sure everyone knows it. Lena was crying now, mascara running down her face. I loved you. I thought we were building a life together. We were, George pleaded. Donna means nothing. She's just trying to destroy us because she's jealous. I have bank statements, Helen interrupted. George has been taking money from both households. He used Lena's inheritance from her father to pay for Donna's mortgage. He used Donna's mother's estate to buy Lena's engagement ring. Lena's hand went to the diamond on her finger, horror spreading across her face. He played you both, Quinn said quietly, and now he'll pay for it. George's security escort tightened as police sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called the cops. 6 months later, I walked into the Los Angeles Superior Court for George's sentencing hearing. The courtroom was nearly empty. Just Helen, Quinn, a few reporters, and Patricia sitting alone in the back row. George sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, his expensive suits long gone. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. His eyes found mine across the room. I looked away. Judge Morrison, no relation to Lena, reviewed the documents with methodical precision. Mr. Carter, you've pleaded guilty to embezzlement, fraud, and bigamy. Before I pass sentence, do you have anything to say? George stood slowly. Your Honor, I made mistakes, but I loved both these women. I was trying to make everyone happy. By lying to everyone, the judge's voice was sharp. By stealing from your employer, your wife, and your own mother-in-law's estate? George's lawyer touched his arm, urging silence. I've reviewed the evidence, Judge Morrison continued. You embezzled $340,000 from Westbridge Capital. You defrauded your legal wife of her inheritance, money that should have ensured her mother's comfortable final years. You manipulated your children, turned your family against an innocent woman, and showed no remorse until you were caught. George looked at me again, desperation in his eyes. Donna, please, tell them I'm not this person. Tell them, you are exactly this person, I said quietly. Everyone turned to look at me. You spent 23 years making me feel small, worthless, crazy. You stole my money, my dignity, my life, and you did it without hesitation. I loved you. You loved what I could give you. My inheritance, my labor, my blind trust. I stood. But I'm done being your victim. The judge nodded. Mr. Carter, I sentence you to 8 years in state prison, with restitution of all stolen funds plus damages. You'll also face civil suits from both Ms. Morrison and Ms. Carter. Patricia gasped from the back. George's face crumbled. As they led him away, he looked back once more. I felt nothing. Outside, Quinn waited with coffee and a gentle smile. Dinner tonight? For the first time in months, I smiled back. Yes. 3 months later, I stood in a small garden chapel in Laguna Beach, surrounded by people who actually loved me. The past 9 months had been a whirlwind, learning to trust again, learning to see myself as someone worthy of genuine affection. Quinn had been patient, never pushing, always present. You look nervous, Jason said, adjusting his tie. He and Michael stood on either side of me, ready to walk me down the aisle. I am, I admitted. What if I'm making another mistake? Mom, Michael said gently. Quinn spent 6 months helping you fight for justice without asking for anything in return. He sees you, really sees you. Jason nodded. And if he ever hurts you, we know where he lives. I laughed, surprising myself. The music started. My sons walked me toward Quinn, who stood at the altar with tears in his eyes, something George had never done. I didn't think I'd ever do this again, I whispered, as we joined hands. Neither did I, Quinn admitted, but some second chances are worth the risk. The ceremony was simple. No elaborate performances, no family politics, just 2 people choosing each other. I can't promise perfect, Quinn said during his vows, but I promise honest. I promise to see you, hear you, value you. Every single day. My voice shook. I promise to trust again, to believe I deserve kindness, to build something real with you. When we kissed, I felt something I hadn't felt in decades. Hope. The small reception was filled with laughter and genuine warmth. Helen gave a toast about second acts. My sons welcomed Quinn into the family. Even Lena sent flowers with a note. Thank you for exposing the truth. You saved my life too. That evening, A newspaper sat on a prison common room table. George picked it up, seeing the wedding announcement. The photo showed me laughing, truly happy, in Quinn's arms. George stared at what he'd lost. Not just me, but the life he could have had if he'd chosen honesty over deception. He'd destroyed everything. And this time, there was no one left to blame but himself. Thank you for watching until the end. Your support is very important. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.